Today we want to take a look at the idea of a matrix. A matrix, or plural matrices, is a way to organize data into rows and columns. The first thing we need to look at for a matrix are the dimensions. The dimensions are the number of rows by the number of columns. So if I take a look at my number of rows going across, we have 2 rows. Then if I want to take a look at the number of columns going up and down, I have 3 columns. To label this matrix, matrix A, then what we would do is we'd write A, and in the subscript here we put its dimensions of 2 by 3. This will be very important when we add and subtract matrices and when we multiply matrices. We have to use the dimensions to help us know if we can perform our operations. If I have 2 equal matrices, they're equal if they are the same size and shape, and each corresponding entry is equal to each other. So if I take a look at the picture of these 2 by 2 matrices, I can see that the first positions are equal to each other, -2 and -2. Then I've got 0.5, which is the same thing as 1/2, 4/5, which is the same thing as 0.8, and 0, which is the same thing as the natural log of 1. So these 2 matrices would be considered equal to each other. If I have a matrix, I can multiply it by what's called a scalar multiple, a number out in front. To do that, I multiply each of the entries of the matrix by that scalar multiple, kind of like distribution. Let's take a look at our first operation that we would like to do, and that is to add matrices together or subtract them. To add matrices, they must have the same dimensions. If so, then you simply add each corresponding entry. If the dimensions are not the same, then you cannot add them together, and you would say not possible. Looking at my matrix B and C, they are both 3 by 2 matrices, which means I can go ahead and add them together. But first, it says I want to multiply my matrix B by 2 and my matrix C by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 2 out in front of my matrix B here. So I have 2 times my matrix B plus I want to take 3 times my matrix C. To multiply my first matrix by 2 means that I want to take this 2 on the outside and multiply each of my corresponding entries on the inside by that number. So now I can go ahead and rewrite my first matrix. When I multiply 2 in the top row, I'm going to get a 4 and a 12. Then multiply a 2 with the middle row, and 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times -8 is -16. Do the same thing for the bottom row. 2 times -5 is -10, and 2 times -1 is -2. Then I want to go ahead and multiply my second matrix here by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and in the top row, multiply the 10 and 2 by 3. 3 times 10 is 30, and 3 times 2 is 6. Do the same thing for the middle row. 3 times 7 is 21, and 3 times -3 is -9. And then once again for the bottom row, 3 times -3 is 3 times -1 is -3, and 3 times 5 is 15. Once I've done my distribution, then I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 matrices together. And that'll give me the matrix. In my top row, I want to add 4 plus 30 is 34, and 12 plus 6 is 18. In my middle row, 6 plus 21 is 27. -16 plus -9 is -25. In the bottom row, -10 and -3 is -13. And -2 plus 15 is a positive 13. And here would be the answer in matrix form. We can do the same thing with a subtraction. If you want to distribute the -1 first and then add the different corresponding entries together, that's what I would do. So looking at my number 2 here, we've got another 3c, so I can steal that 3c from problem number 1, and then I want to find -b. So let's go ahead and multiply my b by a negative first. So if I want to find -1 times my matrix B, let's go ahead and distribute that -1. In the top row, I'm going to have a -2 and a -6. In the middle row, -3 and +8. In the bottom row, +5 and +1. So then we can go ahead and take our 3c that we already found in problem number 1, and I'm just going to rewrite him. 36, 21, -9, -3, and 15. And I want to add that to my new matrix, -2, -6, -3, 8, 5, 1. And again, I want to add each of the corresponding entries. So 30 minus 2 will give me a 28. 6 plus a -6 is 0. 21 minus 3 is going to give me a +18. -9 plus 8 is -1. -3 plus 5 is 2. And 15 plus 1 is 16. On today's worksheet, you just want to worry about the adding and subtracting problems like these, and when you're multiplying by a scalar multiple. You're going to hold off and wait to do the matrix multiplication until tomorrow when we take a look at that. So just do the adding and subtracting problems on the worksheet and save the multiplication problems for tomorrow.